Hello everyone, it's been a long time since I've done one of these videos, but I was inspired by Simone, and a few years ago she started a thing called the 8 fountain pen questions, and many of us YouTubers jumped in on it and we answered those questions and made videos. And recently she started 8 more fountain pen questions, and so I'm kind of late to the bandwagon, but I did write down these questions and I have some answers, and I thought that I would share them with you today. So if you are willing to chill out with me here for a few minutes while I read the things that I wrote and talk about my love of fountain pens, I would be very grateful. Okay, so like I said, it's been a long time since I have done this video. Some of my answers have changed, some of them have stayed the same, and so I'm probably not going to do an overhead down on my desk view, because I don't think I'm going to be pulling out my pens and stuff. I'm just going to make this sort of cozy and just a little chat. So I hope that's okay with you. So Simone, I'm telling you, she is always starting stuff, and she just really keeps this fountain pen community going, I think, a lot. She's really a wonderful YouTuber, and if you're not watching her, you should be. So last year, she asked 8 simple questions of us fountain pen users, and it was just a way to sort of get to know us better and to get to know how everyone views their fountain pen hobby and how everyone uses their pens. And the answers were so varied and so different from person to person. And so it's really interesting to get to know people who are in the same hobby on that level. So I thought it would be really fun to do these questions again now that I'm in a different environment and I have been continuing with my fountain pen hobby. It's been 7 years now, I think, since my first fountain pen. So I am going to, hold on. I'm not fully caffeinated yet. So I've just used my regular journal here, and I've written down her questions, and I kind of wrote a basic answer for me, because if you know, I can be long-winded and I often get off track. So I'm going to do my best to stay on track today. So her first question was, do you have different uses for different pens? And so for me, no. None of my pens have special or specific uses other than just for journaling and everyday writing. May as well just I use them in my journal and in my planner, and I also use them because I'm currently handwriting my first draft of my second manuscript. I hand wrote my first manuscript for my first novel, and that's in rewrites now. Just thought I'd show it off real quick. I hand wrote my first my first manuscript for my very first novel, and I had it printed, and I had it printed and edited, and I'm currently in rewrites. It's taking forever. This is taking forever. I've been working on it for 4 years, so really in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long, especially for my first novel, but it's long enough. So I'm working on rewrites for that, and I also have another novel that I've begun that I am also handwriting my first draft of it as well. If any of you are interested in any of that information, let me know down below, and I can do videos on those. I don't really talk about my writing as far as novel writing goes very often, because it's just not something that comes up much, but I do use my fountain pens exclusively for handwriting my first draft, and I also journal exclusively in fountain pens, and I journal daily, every single day, sometimes hours and pages a day. I have something that I've spoken about in previous videos called hypergraphia, and it's an obsessive need to continually write. It doesn't matter what I'm writing or where I'm writing on. It can be writing on the backs of napkins. It could be writing on the backs of receipts, on envelopes or something. When the obsession or when the compulsion hits, I have to write, and I could be writing garbled nonsense, but I have to write. And so I always have notebooks with me. I've been journaling obsessively for years anyway. I have videos on that further back if you are interested in that. So anyway, the answer to that question, see, I told you I was going to get sidetracked, is no, I have no pens that are specially for anything. Like, I don't have a certain pen that goes with my planner or anything of that nature. I don't have one everyday carry pen that stays in my purse. I keep all of my currently inked pens are in my rickshaw case here, and I usually have 6 inked up, and I rotate through them. So they are each used equally, and when one runs dry, I wash it and put it to dry, and then I ink up another one. And they all get used in my manuscripts, and they all get used in my journals. Every last one of them. Okay, and I sort of feel like if I were to choose favorites and have just like one for my planner or one for, you know, my manuscripts or one for a certain thing, then the other ones would get jealous, and I don't want that. The second question was, how do you choose the next ink and the next pen that you'll use? And I will say this. I have a master ink and master pen list, and I go by the list. If I have all of my pens and inks. I keep a pen and ink log where every time I ink up a pen for the month, I have each month has its own page, and for every pen and ink that I use for that month, I log it. And I've been doing that for years as well. But I also have a master list of all of my pens, and I update it every year. So this is my master pen list, and then this is what I keep track of them on. And every time I use a pen, this usually is inside my pen and ink log, but my pen and ink log, I just filled it. So I retired that one, and I've started a brand new one, so these have to be taped in. But every time I use a pen, I mark it off for the month, and I do the same for my inks, and that is to make sure that I'm using all of my pens and inks, and because I don't want to have pens and inks that just sit around and be unused. I feel like that's wasteful. And I am someone who I can use ink and pens consistently and more than, so some people will do videos like currently inked for the month of, and they'll use those particular pens for the whole month, and they'll last them the whole month. Well, that doesn't work with me. I usually go through about 20 pens and inks a month, 15 to 20, because of how much writing I do. So I used to do videos where I would show my pen and ink log, and I would go over the pens and inks that I had used for that month. And so this was my old one, and my older one, and this is the one that I just finished. So it has its own master list here in the front that I keep track with everything, with my inks and my pens. And then every month I would just write the date that I inked it and the date that I wrote it dry. And if I had any thoughts on the pen, then I would write those things too. And I just finished, like, these were my pen thoughts on different pens too, but I just finished this notebook, and this was my notebook before that. So I've been doing this for a while. This notebook started in November of 2020. But I have a new one in here, and so new pen and ink log, and so that's kind of how I do. And then I do also have favorites that I reach for more often. I try not to though, unless I am really and truly super craving, you know, a dopamine hit from one of my favorite pen and ink combinations, then, you know, then I go by the list. So I go by what's next in the list. Or if I've already used 2 Lammies in the past month, then I won't ink up another Lammy until maybe next month or so, because I have several Lammies. I try to vary what I'm using, and I have about the same number of pens as I do of inks. Most of my pens have specific inks that I use in them, that I exclusively use in them, and I just prefer it that way. But I do have some pens that are either, you know, clear demonstrators, or they're a color that, you know, I don't mind using different colored inks in. So that's kind of how I decide what to use and when to use it. Whenever I write one dry, then that's when I ink up another one, and I log it, and then I just go by the list. And it, I feel like my belongings, my pens and my inks are well used because of that. I know a lot of people have really large collections, and not everyone writes as much as I do. So sometimes I've heard people talk about how they can go a whole year and never touch a single pen, or never touch certain pens, or never get to, you know, many pens. And I want to use all of my pens and all of my inks. And by using this list and seeing what I reach for and what I gravitate towards more often, I can see if there are any pens or inks in my collection that maybe I'm not reaching for, and I can find out why. And then usually, if that is the case, then I try and rehome them. I don't currently have any pens or inks, and I have 2 inks that I'll rehome to someone here soon. But I don't have currently any pens in my collection that I'm not actively using and enjoying, so I'm very happy about that. Number 3, which pens do you use for longer writing sessions? I use all of my pens for long writing sessions, because all of my writing sessions are long writing sessions. When I'm writing in my manuscripts, I will reach for my Pilot Custom 823 because it has such a huge ink capacity, or my TWSBI VAC 700 Iris, or if either of those are not available, which usually they are available, or if I just want to use a different ink, then otherwise just a fully inked TWSBI Eco. And so the idea in my manuscript is that I'll write for an entire day in one ink color. And so that way, when I look back over my manuscript and I'm looking at what I've written and I'm working with different parts, you know, and moving things together and moving things around or whatever, I can see what work I put in on what day, and kind of like that. In my journal, though, it's a little bit different. I have a thing where I write 2 pages with every pen and every ink, and then I move on to the next pen and ink. and I do that throughout my entire rotation of my 6 pens. And I usually can get through an entire rotation of all 6 of my pens in one day, if not more, because I write. I'm very lucky and in a privileged position that my kids are older, and we homeschool, and taking care of my home is rather easy, and so I have a lot of time to write. And my family is also very much aware of my mental health struggles and of my need to write. And so I've never had specific pens that are specifically for longer writing sessions. I just write with all of them equally. And for each different pen, I have to change my grip slightly. So even though like my finger may get a little sore, or I never get to the point where it's just too painful to write anymore, or anything like that. So I've never had any wrist issues or anything. Thank goodness. Thank God for that. I don't know what I would do if I wouldn't be able to write. Okay. If you had to choose, or I'm sorry, what is your all-time favorite pen? That's like asking me what my all-time favorite child is. I can't answer that. What did I write? I have several favorite pens, but I don't have one all-time favorite. I think if I were to choose maybe my 3 favorite pens, my first one would be my Pilot Custom 823. It's a very, very special pen to me. It was my Grail pen, and it was also gifted to me. It is a magnificent writer. I love everything about it. So that's one of my favorite pens. And then my the very first hand-turned custom pen I ever purchased was from the Orlando Pen Show in 2023 from Divine Pens Plus, and it was a Rocky Top pen, so that's one of my favorites. And then my Esterbrook Oktoberfest. I think those 3 are 3 of my favorite pens. If I had to choose one nib size for the rest of my life, it would be a medium. I love seeing, part of the joy that I get from writing is seeing the saturated colors of my ink on the pages, and I feel like a medium nib really gives me that. There are some pens that I have that are fine nibs, and they leave a really wet line, and I really enjoy that, and so I enjoy those. But for the most part, if I going forward, if I were purchasing more pens in the future and I could only purchase one nib size, then it would be medium. What is my favorite nib grind? I do not know, because I don't have any, I don't have any pens with any special nib grinds. I find that for me personally, I don't need pens with special nib grinds because I enjoy writing so much with regular nibs. I don't have a need for any special nib grinds. I don't do like special writing, like copperplate or Spencerian script or anything like that. I just write to write, so I don't need any special nib grinds. One ink for the rest of my life. That's really hard. My favorite colors of inks are greens and oranges and yellows. And so that would be really, really hard to choose. I know I do like other colors though, because you know, you need that dopamine hit every once in a while. Like sometimes I just need to write with Konpeki. But if I had to choose one ink for the rest of my life, it would probably be, even though I hate to say this because I'm not really a fan of the company anymore, but Ferris Wheel Press Buttered Popcorn. I would write with that for the rest of my life. And then the next runner-up would be Andorilium Viceroy Butterfly Orange. I really like those. A a deal breaker for a pen and ink for me. So for a pen is, I am not really a fan of all metal pens, and they're too heavy for me, and I don't like the feeling of metal in my, when I'm for my grip. It's too slippy for me. Sometimes my hands are very grippy, sometimes they're rather dry, so it just kind of slips around. Now the exception to that is I have a brass Kaweco Sport that I love writing with, and also a Kaweco AL Sport that was a birthday gift from my husband when I turned 35. I've been writing with fountain pens for longer than 7 years, because I'm gonna be 44 next month, so it's been a long time. Anyway, so I write with those, and also my Kaweco Student has a metal grip, and my Lamy Studio has a metal grip. I write with those because I have them, and the Kawecos all have special meaning to me. The Lamy Studio was gifted to me as well, and so I write with those because they have special meaning to me because they were gifted, but they're not my favorites to write with, and going forward I don't purchase metal pens or pens with metal grips. I just don't do that because I like for my pens to warm up in my hands. I feel like when I'm taking a cold pen from my case, like my 823 here, when it comes out of my case, it's cold. It's a little chilly. And so when I uncap it and I write, and I'm writing for a long session, I feel like the warmth and energy and love in my hand warms up my pen. And I don't know, I'm weird, and I sometimes attribute, personal things to inanimate objects, but I feel like it makes my pen happy. And that makes me happy. And cold metal just doesn't warm to your touch like other pens do. Anyway, that's just me being weird. And for as far as an ink, I don't like shimmer inks or highly sheening inks. I just don't see, because of how much I write and the lack of consistency in the flow of shimmer and sheen, like I don't want to have to turn my page like this to see anything special on the page. I want to just look at my page and see my beautiful writing as it is. So I don't see a need for shimmer or sheen inks. I also feel like they're a little finicky to clean properly out of pens. And I like to keep my pens cleaned properly because I feel like that's another way of honoring them. Yeah, so those are deal breakers for me. And there was a bonus question that was asked by Gold Spot Pens, and what's one pen that you think everyone should have? Now, so get out a pen and take notes. I feel like everyone who has fountain pens, who leaves their home with their fountain pens in their case and their journal or their planner or whatever they're writing in, and they go to work or they go to do whatever, I feel like if you are leaving home with your fountain pens, you need to have one spare, or in my case, more spares. You need to have one that you are prepared to give away. One of the things that brings me so much joy is when I'm out and I'm writing, and like we have a local coffee shop here that I visit sometimes, or just different places, and if people see me writing in my journal and writing with fountain pens, also at church, I take notes in church, and I take notes, and I have a specific notebook that I take sermon notes in, and I write with my fountain pens. And I have had people ask me in church, like, what are you writing with? Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Wow, I didn't know they made those anymore. And they seem really interested, not just casually interested, but really interested, and they ask me more information. And wow, well, what would you recommend a new person start with? I really love to be able to just pull one out of my bag and be like, here, have this one. And I actually have a little, I have a little baggie, and I have a bunch of Jinhao 82s in there, and they're already inked up. I would get them and show you, but my purse is not in this room, and I've already gotten up like 4 times and no one's awake out there yet. But I make like a little sheet, like on pretty paper, and I put it in a little plastic baggie, and I will hand them a Jinhao 82 and I'll show them how to write with it. And that way they can walk away, because it can be overwhelming when if you're really interested in fountain pens and you've seen someone write with one and you're like, wow, I want to write with one too, and this is great. I feel like if I can afford to have an expensive fountain pen, then I want to be able to afford to gift someone their first fountain pen that sends them on their journey. And Jinhao 82s are not expensive, but they're darn good workhorse little pens, and I feel like they're nice gifts for someone who's brand new into fountain pens. And they're just good pens. Anyway, I actually have 2 inked up right now in springtime colors, but I feel like that is the one pen, or that is a pen that every fountain pen lover should have in their, whether you're a man and you carry a man bag with your pens in it, or you're a woman and you carry a purse or a backpack or whatever. I always have in my bag, I have my little Ziploc bag, and I've got a few Jinhao 82s in there and a few of these little folded up notes, and I also give some recommendations and tell them the kind of fountain pen it is, what the nib is, the converter, and that they need bottled ink. I give them the information to Goldspot website and to Goulet, and a couple different YouTube videos where they can reference, and I try to give them as much concise information on one little sheet, that one pen and that one little sheet can be something that they go home and write with, and it brings them instant joy, and it can send them down the path to fountain pens and writing for pleasure and really enjoying the joy of writing. So I feel like that's a pen that I think everybody should have in their bag and in their pen case. And if you are lucky enough and you're nice enough, then you should have more than one. Personally, every time, I don't get a YouTube check every month, but every time I do get a YouTube check, I always, from the same seller, I buy a bundle of like 5 Jinhao 82s, and I get them home and I test out all the nibs first and make sure they're nice and they work well. I ink them up, and I make new little things, and then I put them in, it's rather a thick Ziploc bag. I say Ziploc bag, but it's more like one of those reusable Ziploc bags, and I just keep them tucked into this little spot in my bag, and yeah, and I'm very happy to give them to when people are genuinely interested. Like, I'm not just handing them out like candy. Someone who is really and truly genuinely interested and really wants to talk about it, and I'm very happy to give one. So I think that is something that we can all do. Like, if you're watching this video, you're into fountain pens and you probably have more than one. And maybe if you're not a fan of Jinhao 82s, something else, a very inexpensive entry-level pen that maybe you personally don't reach for anymore. Ink it up and put it in your bag, and wait for that conversation to happen when you're out, and then give a person a pen. I've been so blessed that I've been given amazing pens, and so I can't afford to give the type of pens that I was given, but I can afford to give out some Jinhao 82s. So that's what I think is a really good thing to do. Anyway, yeah, so that's my answer to the 8 pen questions plus 1 bonus. and I hope it wasn't too rambly for you. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned a little bit more about me and my love for pens, and it was a lot of fun to make this video. I've been using this same case since I got it at the Orlando Pen Show in September of 2023. The same pen case, and I have 3 extra pen sleeves in there. I have not used any other case, and I've, like, this is great too, because I don't know if you know this, but Rickshaw, if you get like stuff on your pen case or whatever, you just use spray cleaner and just a toothbrush and you can wash it. So you can clean it up. Anyway, it's great. Love it. Anywho, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you like content like this, please let me know down below and I will do more of it. If you would be so kind, if you are not already subscribed, to please subscribe. Let me know some more of the videos that you would like to see as far as this content goes, and I would be happy to make them for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope all of you take care and you go out and you just share your love and your passion for fountain pens and writing, and share it with everyone you meet.